in 1 year. Yikes.
When was it done before that then? What year? Every 4 years.
So if it's the assessed value is 44 million, what is the tax levy?
Everything being equal and using the budget that we have. It's roughly about $65,000.
Really, only $65,000 each year spread between all the rural area. Even at 70% increase.
Because it's 25% of the residential tax.
Yeah. So it still is only.
It's a big percentage, but it's not a big tax dollar when you look
Yeah.
at the whole.
When you break it down.
Yeah.
So that's not onerous. Okay.
Okay.
How many properties, sorry, can I ask how many properties this involves?
I don't have that with me right now. I don't have other information to know how many properties are.
But that's not true.
Yeah. There's quite a few.
Okay. Motion to receive and file. All in favor of that? Carried. Thank you. 5.2, System Scouts Canada requesting a donation towards Project Wellness. I don't believe we support this program, so we can send a letter of thank you and wish them well, but it doesn't fall within our, if that would be a motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
I have a question, please.
Okay.
This doesn't fall with any of our grant criteria, the stuff there, it has to be local and okay. All right, I'm just checking.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, but to follow up, it's, our local scout troops are participating in this, right? Because I noticed that one of the signers lives on Proof Line, so is he a scout leader for one of our local scout troops?
I honestly don't know.
It's Lantern Shore Scouts. The letter, right?
It's,
I'm saying Lantern Shores,
it's Scouts Canada.
Scouts Canada.
but I think Lantern Shores is mentioned.
Tri-Shores.
Lantern County.
Lambton County is one. It's Adventure Scouts from the Lambton County area,
Yeah.
so it's I think that's one higher than was.
That's the only thing, because our local scout troops, but then,
Well,
it's
there
not
are
an
other
initiative
local
for the
scout
local
troops.
area.
No, there
Grand
isn't.
Bend has still, as
Bedford
far
has
as.
one, Bedford does.
We just have a militia.
Anyway, motion is that we thank them, wish them well, and return letter. All in favor of that? Carried. Thank you. 6.1. This is Grand Bend boat launch and gas stock. This report. And I know the chamber is sitting here and thinking we've got to deal with them so they can go home, but we're going to make them wait. On pins and needles. Brent, do you want to talk about this report? I guess it's straightforward there. What?
Well, it's straightforward, and I guess it isn't.
It isn't, yeah.
Well, the challenge is that, as we all know, water levels are decreasing. We hadn't planned any program changes for Grand Bend to include spot dredging in 2013. It's been brought to our attention that the launch ramp at this point in time would not be operable for some of the large vessels that we have. And 90% of our berthings at our marina do use the launch ramp to get into the water. In addition, we received some feedback that the people are grounding out of the gas docks. The challenge is I wanted to get this report before council so it's on your radar and so you're aware of it. The challenge for me to give you a definite price of what it's going to cost is I don't have that information right now because we haven't done the soundings. So I apologize because I don't have the entire information for you, but I felt that it needed to be brought up now.
Councillor Bond.
Through you to Brent, I've got a question, Brent, because this to me is it's another one of those rhetorical questions that we have to do something at the same time if we made it a local improvement tax for whatever it costs to do this and added on to the berthing, so Ray does it, the dockage fees, are we gonna drive business away? Because we already have people saying we're not coming to Grand Bend because it doesn't have a 4-foot draft. Now they want us to pay an extra $100 to dredge it.
Yeah.
In your opinion, are we caught between a rock and a hard place here?
I would say that's exactly a perfect analogy. You're correct that economics will tell us that a certain degree of price increase will drive, some people away. I'm sure there'll still be some that do come because Grand Bend is a prime location to have your dock. It's a great place to be in the summertime. But on the other hand, if we do nothing, then again, we do have the reputation at that point of having an inoperable gas dock, having an inoperable boat launch, and that in itself drives people away.
What's the next from this? Like, okay, if we do the launch ramp, and we have our docks that are on the north side, where do we, like, is this?
Well, that's
We can get people.
That's really what this is proposing, or what we'd only propose to do is only to remove any sort of sediment buildup. We know at the end of the launch ramp, it drops off pretty steeply, and at a point in time, some aggregate and granite and gravel were put at the end, and that's actually what's causing the problem now, so we need to pull it out.
Okay.
The docks on the north side, at that point you're starting to get into digging into the clay, and the ABCA has already, they told me as early as this week that there's no way we're digging into the clay without a serious geotechnical report. So if those docks, at this point, I don't think you could use those docks because the bottom of the river is exposed halfway at the dock, and it's just the unfortunate reality of having low water.
We have to make that decision. People are paying their fees and wondering whether they're going to have a place. Some people are already going someplace else. I hear that some of the sailboats are trying for different harbors. So, Deputy Mayor Daggett.
Yes, through you to Brent, obviously, this issue seems to be related in some way to climate change. And on the flip side, we see that we're not paying as much for winter control because we don't have to clear back as much snow. So is it not prudent for us to take money that we would have been directed toward the dilemma of excess snow and putting it towards something like this? Obviously, we're going to have to pay money to deal with it. I think we have to accept that, but does it mean that we have to increase our budget? I think that that's unnecessary.
I guess my only caution would be that if you look at our 2012 actuals, our wages and some of the costs for snow control were down, but correspondingly our costs of grass cutting and brushing were well over budget because it was just a redirection of our efforts. When we weren't plowing snow in January and February of last year, we were out cutting down trees. And that's the same thing that's been happening this year. When the workforce isn't out plowing snow, we immediately resort to cutting down trees because there's always trees that need to be brushed and pulled back. So you will see an increase in that wage item. Even right now, you'll see our year-to-date probably higher than it normally would have been because we're doing more effort in that area.
It's in certain salaries maybe, but we're not paying for the equipment costs and we're not paying for the granular costs or things to put on the road because of that. And those are probably far more expensive than the salaries.
Actually, they're not. The salaries are more expensive. This year we've only budgeted $52,000 in winter control material, and that's a reflection of us now having our own salt and sand dome.
Okay, Councillor Underwood, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I think bottom line is we're going to have to be looking long term here, especially with climate change, all the rest. We've got to look at, we have to decide a point where we have Port Franks and Grand Bend no longer viable as a port for anything with a draft of 4 feet. Eventually it's going to have to be very shallow bottom boats if they can get in there at all. It's just the fact of the way it is. Maybe over the next couple of decades it might start cycling up again. We'll get more water in the lake. Maybe, maybe not. Meanwhile, we're pouring hundreds of thousands, we're pouring millions of dollars down to dredging every year on an ever-increasing cycle of less and less water. So sooner or later, we're going to have to say, well, gee whiz, it's going to be a bitter pill, but we're going to have to look at that. So
There's a point, and I guess it's what there'll be limited services in the harbor. Whether we can do this dredging for the launch ramp and the gas dock. I think it's important to do the gas